15. That number is the number of lies that you're about to hear as I play you through the footage around lap 56 of Abu Dhabi. This is part 2. Part 1 demonstrated the misdirection presented to us by F1 TV with the footage they constructed to condition our thought process as to what was happening. This one looks at the commentary and more specifically the lies being told to prepare us all for that last lap shootout. Now remember, the key thing that has to happen on lap 56 is that all lapped cars have to be released. Otherwise, it has to be a safety car finish. That's the only valid application of the rules. So, let's play this through.
And but will they let the lap runners through? I don't think it's.
There we go. Straight away, lie number 1. Will they let the lap runners through? And he goes on to say, I don't think it's mandatory. In order to get a restart to racing, the lap runners have to be cleared. It is categorically not possible, it's not within the rules to resume racing with lapped cars in situ. I'm going to produce a future video which will fully evidence that. It will evidence the rules. I'll go through the regulations and the sporting code to show you, and I will show you graphically the implications of that. So that is lie number 1.
Absolutely mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day that they do.
Number 2, that's normally on a wet day. There is absolutely nothing in the rules or regulations that presents a different version of events in wet conditions to dry conditions with regard to how cars unlap during or after a safety car procedure. So that is further gaslighting by Brundle.
Don't. And if so, how long will they wait for those lap cars to get out of the way? If they wait.
So, number 3, Brundle poses a question as if the answer is ambiguous, it is unknown, yet to be determined. We know for sure that that period has to be at least 1 lap beyond the lap on which they're released. So that is the minimum, and we also know that that can be extended at the discretion of the race director. So there has been 4 events that Massey has been race director of, whereby he did the mandatory additional safety car lap as required. So on the lap that the cars are released, there's the mandatory lap, and Massey has then kept the safety car out for an additional lap to allow those lapped cars sufficient time to rejoin the back of the train, and that is his discretion. So Brundle suggesting how long will they wait, posing a question as though it's guesswork, is further gaslighting, because we know the minimum time, and realistically it's not going to be beyond that, because there's no chance of it being beyond that.
For them to catch the pack up, which they don't have to do, no. Then I don't think we'll get.
Okay, that bit is true. As long as you give them that minimum mandatory lap, you don't have to allow them to catch the back of the pack. Okay, that is fine. I'm not disputing what he's saying there. But like I say, Massey has let them catch the back of the pack on 4 occasions where he has kept the car circulating behind the safety car to give them that additional time.
Get a racing lap. If they let them through, we could get 1 racing lap.
So that is true. But what he doesn't stipulate is the conditions of that. And the conditions of that are they all must be let through this lap. They have to be released this lap and have passed the safety car before commencement of lap 57. That's the only way that then lap 57 can be the safety car lap, and that's the only way that lap 58 can be a racing lap. But Brundle does not highlight that fact. And it is quite simple. In the way I'm saying it now, they are the simple facts of the only way of resuming racing to this Grand Prix. Otherwise, Lewis Hamilton is champion because it has to be a safety car finish. And assuming Lewis Hamilton makes it to the end of the race, he is world champion. No mention of that.
3 laps to go. Nicholas Latifi is seemingly okay after that contact with the barriers, around about 90 miles an hour. But he would have taken a whack, and it's good to see that he's okay. Sergio Perez coming into the pits again.
So Max,
I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the 4th time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Okay, I'm going to point this out for a little bit later around the track. This is the exact moment in time where Mercedes won the Constructors' title. Red Bull started this Grand Prix 28 points behind Mercedes. The maximum number of points you can score with one car is 26. 25 for winning, 1 point for the fastest lap. So if you've only got one car left in the race, you can't overhaul a 28-point deficit. So it is this moment in time that Mercedes became Constructors' Championship, and Red Bull threw away any hopes whatsoever of taking that crown, and the difference between first and second place in the Constructors' title is probably somewhere between 60 and 80 million dollars. This was a point in time where the cars are lapping behind the safety car, so their engines are not being stressed because they are lapping at a limited speed.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
Really? Yeah, box.
And when the driver doesn't even feel that there's an issue with the car, it does raise certain questions.
lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
It's not mandatory in the
So once again, Brundle reaffirms this notion of it not being mandatory when it absolutely is. So that there is a further lie. Now before I continue the footage on this lap, I'm going to cut to the driver cam footage of Max Verstappen and show you something which goes on down this straight.
Overtake, stay online, let them go off the racing line. I'm not, sorry, cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Think of these guys.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, I want you to think about how long that conversation took, the gaps in between each party talking, and the location that this takes place is the long straight in between turn 5 and turn 6. Right, I'm going to cut back to where we were. Okay, I just rewound it about 2 seconds, so we pick it up again when Brundle says it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory in the regulations, which leaves Verstappen with a lot of work to do then.
Okay, so he says it's not mandatory, and he then suggests this notion, well, this leaves Verstappen a lot of work to do. So he has this suggestion that when they go racing in this condition, which they're not allowed to do, that Max then has to pass these 5 cars. He's setting up this notion that this is a possibility when it absolutely is not.
So Mercedes will be Constructors' champions at the end of this race as it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race.
That's a lie. Bottas and Hamilton could crash out of this race now, and Mercedes would still be Constructor champion. It's as simple as that. They've got a 28-point lead, and if the two Mercedes crash out, Max could win and get the fastest lap, and Red Bull are still going to be 2 points behind them. So once again, Crofty is bringing people's attention to focus on, oh, what are Mercedes still doing in this race? There's still chances for them. When that battle is done and dusted.
Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs.
But it's only very much up for grabs if all lapped cars can be released before the start of lap 57.
Lapped cars won't be allowed to overtake, which means that there are plenty of cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen.
Right, It doesn't mean that racing can restart like that at all, and they keep reaffirming it.
Verstappen for Verstappen to fight his way through.
Not possible. It's not a valid restart condition.
Norris, Alonso, and also Ocon and Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel.
None of which.
Then 5 names that we hear several times, and we hear them again on lap 57, just at the point where Brundle cuts across him and says, and it's ending, because we've been conditioned to just focus on these 5 names that they've given to us several times.
Which are for position, of course. No. They're obliged to get out of the way, but Lewis will be long down the road.
Again, they are making you believe that actually that's a viable option, but it's not.
That I suppose is the compromise that race control have made here.
When does a commentator state, I suppose this is the best compromise that the referee can make? The referee is there to apply the rules of the sport. He is not there to facilitate drama or action. You apply the rules of the sport, and what happens, happens. The result will be what it is. You can't generate or manufacture something. And if the referee is not applying the rules of the sport, the commentators of that sport are in dismay. They are asking questions as to what is going on and what is the referee doing. Crofty smoothly tells us a notion, well, I suppose this is the compromise that he's making. That is not authentic.
By giving the best possible chance for racing to the finish rather than finishing behind the safety car, they've decided the lap cars will stay where they are.
So the best chance of us seeing some drama is for the referee to change the rules, and then we get the chance of seeing the drama. That's effectively what you've just said there, Crofty. So you are lying to people because that is not a valid possibility, but you are suggesting that it is before Massey makes his so-called mistake. What do you know? Because if you are validly commentating on this race and applying the rules of the sport that we all know to be true, you do not make comments like that. Right. Team radio. The message I showed you down the back straight. Listen to it now. Listen to the timings. Listen to the size of the gaps. And look what they do. They overlay it over Max Verstappen's car to make you think that that radio message is taking place at that moment in time.
Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Notice there were no gaps in between the pit crew and Verstappen talking, because F1 TV have taken that radio message that took place down the back straight, they've taken the gaps out, they've condensed it, and they are playing it to the world now at this moment in time. At this moment in time, there are marshals on track at turn 14 as they were going as they were going down the back straight when this message took place. There were marshals on track at turn 14. That is the reason why they are not letting lapped cars through. F1 TV know that is the reason, but they are playing this to the watching world to make the watching world think that Red Bull are somehow being hard done by in this situation by the referee thwarting their chances. When the reality is the race director, the referee, is not letting lapped cars through on the grounds of safety because there are men on track, and you can't let lapped cars through whilst there are still marshals on the track clearing up debris. This is the narrative they have constructed to make you believe this situation is authentic and is actually happening like this.
I'll try and look at this objectively. We should.
Crofty pretending that he is balanced, trying to say, well, look, let me look at this objectively. And he'll propose solutions which aren't allowed under the rules and regulations of the sport. That's not being objective, that's not being balanced, but he presents himself as such.
Should get 1 lap of racing here. If we allow...
In order to get that 1 lap of racing, all the lapped cars would need to be released and have got round. And we'll see why that can't happen very, very shortly.
Without the lap cars to overtake, we'd have no laps of racing to the checkered flag. So what do Red Bull want?
So if we allowed the lap cars to overtake, we'd have no laps. Well, we still can't allow them to overtake yet because there's still men on the track. So he's suggesting the possibility that's still not possible. And he's also stated, well, if we do that, there's no more racing laps. Well, there you go. And there's no alternative to that. So what you need to be saying is this race is going to end under the safety car. And providing Lewis Hamilton stays on track for the next 2 laps, he will become the 8-time world champion. That is the only authentic thing that is to be stated at this moment in time. And Crofty says...
And Max Verstappen and Giampiero Lambiase as race engineer, do they want the chance or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no overtaking? Because I think that is the decision that has come from race control.
So he's proposing this option, the either-or situation. Either it finishes behind the safety car or you get the chance to race, but in this situation. This is not valid. But he's proposing and suggesting that it is, and telling the world, oh, well, this is the alternatives you have. What do you want out of these 2 choices?
And personally, this is the decision that gives them the best chance if they want it.
Yeah, I mean...
Really? Okay. So, here we go with Martin Brundle again.
The regulation, as I said, they may allow the lap cars through. It's not mandatory.
It's mandatory. The only discretionary part of it is on the ground of safety. If it's safe to do so, the race director will instruct those lapped cars to pass the safety car. If it's not safe to do so, it's not safe to resume racing. Hence, you continue lapping behind the safety car until it is safe, and when it is declared safe, that's when you carry out that unlapping procedure. That's how the rules work.
Pointed out, but as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through.
And there you go. We are now on lap 57. If they let the lapped cars through this lap, then lap 58 is that mandatory safety car lap. This is now guaranteed to be a safety car finish. And providing he keeps going to the end of the lap 58, Lewis Hamilton is now the 8-time world champion. There's no mention of that whatsoever. Instead, we listen to this.
Because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be 1 racing lap.
When has anybody ever seen that take place before? I can take you through the rules. It's not possible. But Brundle is saying that that is what he thinks is going to happen. There is absolutely nothing that has taken place in this sport that would make anybody think that that was a possibility. But Brundle thinks that that is what is going to happen. What does he know? So I've taken you through that piece of footage from part 1 and part 2, and I've showed you the narrative created by the footage that's presented. I've showed you the narrative created by what we've just heard the commentators say. They are 2 separate entities. F1 TV is one, Sky Sports F1 is another. They have both worked together to present the same narrative. They have both suggested the same script, suggested the notion of the still being a possibility of seeing a racing finish to this Grand Prix, when it categorically is not possible now at this stage. And it wasn't possible because the track was not clear by the time it needed to be so that those cars could be released on lap 56. It just was not possible. but that is the narrative that we have been fed. Everybody needs to understand this was not a human error. This was not just one man under pressure making a split-second decision. Look at what is leading up to that split-second decision under pressure, and all of it is being constructed and contrived to convince the 108 million people, worldwide watchers, of what we were likely to see happen, and that is not in accordance with the rules of the sport. Hit subscribe if you want to, and the bell notification if you want to get notified of the really important one coming up, which is going to be breaking down and categorically proving that what Brundle is saying about restarting with lap runners in situ is absolutely not an option. Till next time.